Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. American workers are on strike and they're showing their power and they're sending a strong message. Welcome to Ignition Time, where we cover important matters pertaining to the country, the economy, as well as our money. Please click like. Please click subscribe and enable notifications if you're not yet a member of our community. Here's a headline of an article on your screen from the Washington Post. Strikes are sweeping the labor market as workers wield new leverage. In fact, this activism amongst the labor market is spreading throughout America, and this is a direct result of the agony, the frustration, the grievances about wages, benefits, and quality of life driving what I call the Great Resignation, which, by the way, is exactly what is happening as a direct result of the pandemic. Here's a direct quote from the article. While Americans are leaving their jobs at staggering rates, a record 4.3 million quit in August alone. Hundreds of thousands of workers with similar grievances about wage, benefits, and quality of life are choosing to dig in and fight. Last week, 10,000 John Deere workers went on strike, while unions representing 31,000 Kaiser employees authorized workouts. Some 60,000 Hollywood production workers reached a deal in the past few days, averting a strike hours before a negotiation deadline. Basically, what's been happening, folks, there have been strikes against 178 employers this year. And what's happening is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which actually keeps track of large work stoppages, has documented 12 strikes, including over 1,000 workers so far this year. Keep in mind, they only keep track of large work stoppages. You know, and I know that throughout the country, this is becoming more and more of a trend, even for small and medium-sized businesses. So what exactly is happening, folks? This is a phenomenon known as the Great Resignation, which has caused a significant reduction in the number of people willing to work in the US, and this is slowing down the entire economic recovery. Here's a direct quote from the Washington Post. Workers are now harder to replace, especially while many companies are scrambling to meet heightened demand for their products and managed hobbled supply chains, especially with the holiday season coming up. Now, this has given unions new leverage and made striking by the unions something that they can strategically do, and it is less risky for them. In fact, this is when they get to show their power and show their leverage. Now, a lot of workers and labor leaders have said that union members are angry with employers for failing to raise pay to match new profits and are disappointed by the lack of high quality jobs. They are also frustrated that wage growth is not keeping pace with inflation. Now, for the average US worker, hourly pay was up 4% in September compared to a year ago. But the problem is inflation grew 5.4% during that same period. Here's the problem, folks. And by the way, this is a quote from AFL-CIO President Liz Schuller. The strikes are sending a signal, no doubt about it. They're sending a signal that employers ignore workers at their own peril. I think this wave of strikes is actually going to inspire more workers to stand up and speak out and put that line in the sand and say, we deserve better. Folks, I believe every single one of our fellow Americans should live the American dream, should have the honor, the privilege of living the American dream. And I want to tell you that it's very difficult to escape the cycle of poverty that you see on your screen right now. In fact, I was able to escape the cycle of poverty. And in this video that you see on your screen, you'll learn more about how I was able to escape that cycle of poverty that you see on your screen one more time. And I have the fortune, the honor, the privilege of living the American dream. And hopefully I can help you live the American dream. So here's what's happening, everyone. The surge in strikes all over the country has yielded mixed results, according to economists. Now, work stoppages this summer have occurred and have resulted in higher raises and new vacation allowances for workers. But a lot of employers have not, I repeat, not made meaningful increases in their workforces or compensation structures. Now, I think we can all agree that a company should do everything it can to retain its workers and keep its workers happy, because at the end of the day, it's much more profitable and it makes a whole lot more sense for a company to keep workers happy and absorb higher costs associated with paying workers higher wages instead of trying to find new staff and hire new staff. Now, for the employee as well, a new job does not necessarily mean that it's going to be a better job. Here's a quote from William M. Rogers, who's the director of the Institute for Economic Equity at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. He said, There's a cost to searching and a cost to leaving your current employer. And maybe some of the desire to strike is predicated out of a level of loyalty that these people have been with this company for a good duration. In other words, what he's saying is that people go on strike because it's their way of sending a message to their employer. We want to stay with you. Treat us better. Pay us higher wages. Give us better vacation allowances. Take better care of us. Now, this is not a simple matter, however, because at the end of the day, workers are unhappy that the companies are making more money, but at the same time, they are not taking care of workers. In fact, some workers are attempting to get back the perks that actually vanished years ago during economic downturns. Now, the John Deere workers who are striking contend that the massive profits that the company made during the pandemic, their earnings nearly doubled to a record $1.79 billion last quarter. And by the way, this is all publicly available information because many of these companies are public companies. The workers believe that this $1.79 billion profit should be reflected in their compensation, particularly retirement benefits. Now, I want you to know that I think as a company makes more money, it should be taking better care of its workers. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Also, workers take notice when their companies praise them for being heroes and, for essentially coming to work in the early days of the pandemic, but they don't follow it up with actually paying more money to the employees. In other words, the companies play this game of public relations, but they ignore their employees when it comes to compensating them and when it comes to taking care of them. Here's a quote from Kim Cordova, president of the Colorado branch of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. A strike is really the last resort. That's labor's power. A worker's power is to withhold their labor. A company can function without a CEO, but they cannot function without the workers to actually go do the work. And she is absolutely right. Now, I want you to know that I think a strike, again, is a way for the worker to actually assert their voice, if you will. But again, it's not like everyone wants to go on strike and people like to go on strike. It's simply the last measure to try and get noticed, to try and get their voice heard, because this is very challenging, everyone, especially during COVID when healthcare becomes a major problem. If your child can't go to school because of restrictions related to COVID, you now have a different problem on your hands. Now, here's a problem that Kaiser actually ran into. Kaiser actually wanted to propose a cutback to compensation, and they actually wanted to put new employees at the lower end, and they know it's going to make it harder for them to actually hire nurses. Here's a quote from Arlene Pesnell, who's Kaiser's Senior Vice President of Human Resources, and she said that the company is proposing a lower pay scale because its labor costs are unsustainable. Now, Kaiser negotiates with the National Alliance of Unions, and so wages are not regionally adjusted, meaning healthcare workers in some areas earn more than the market average and in other areas earn less. This is what she said. Affordability is a real issue in healthcare, which was highlighted once again during the pandemic. We are trying to be available to more people, and we cannot do that if we are too expensive. So, folks, this is a very complex issue. This is not a simple and straightforward issue. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Should workers have to go on strike to make their voice heard? And what should companies do when they themselves, in some cases, are struggling with a cash crunch, but in a majority of cases, a lot of companies are making more money? Let me know where you think the balance lies, where you think the right solution lies. Please click like, please click subscribe, please enable notifications. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.